Welcome to In the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey, the podcast that invites you to sit down in a cozy living space, sipping a cup of tea while we embark on a captivating journey about our intentional narratives in our lives. I'm Kelly Ramsey, and this podcast is your warm space to unravel the stories woven into everyday moments. It's a tapestry crafted with intention and purpose. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's explore the unnoticed details that contribute to the intentional design of the world around us. Together, we'll celebrate the beauty in the threads that make life extraordinary. Hi, welcome in. This is Kelly Ramsey with In the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey. And we are really excited about today's podcast. Today, we're going to slow things down a bit and just really chat. So I want to invite you into our space today. Go ahead and grab a cup of coffee. I have mine, a little bit of donut shop with cinnamon and a little sugar. And we're just going to chat. Our theme this month is Home for the Holidays. And we know that the holidays can bring in a lot of joy, but also can bring in some stressors or whatnot. And so we're going to talk about what is it to really explore the emotions and traditions and connections that make the holiday season meaningful. And what does it look like for you individually? So we have both some space to talk about it together, but also some action steps, as you know, to think about what does it matter. So if I were to title this episode, it would be Home for the Holidays, Celebrating the Connections That Matter. And that's what it really is all about. It's all about the connections that we make with ourselves and within ourselves. Also, the connections we make in community, which you know I'm a big fan of being together in community. And it's the connections we make with those who are closest to us and how we begin to move through what that looks like. Now, not saying that the holidays and making connections are the easiest thing. Many years I spent my holidays at the airport, traveling home to California, being the only one that lived out of state. And I would travel first by myself when I didn't have a family. And then it was my husband and I. And then it was my husband and my first son, and then my second son. So throughout the years, they learned that the holidays was a time to gather together with family and to create traditions and to spend time away in California. Well, guess what? They grew up. And as they grew up, they began to have their own idea of what they wanted to do during the holidays and how they wanted to spend their time. They had friends and they had connections they had. And so the past couple of years, we've been at home during the holidays. And that's where our Home for the Holiday theme and focus really started, was really thinking about what do I want to have in my home during the holidays that helps me to get cozy. As you remember, our last episode was about hygge and the idea of that cozy settling in. And so what it meant to be home for the holidays took on a new meaning. And so briefly, I want to just share with you the relevance for this broadcast during this season is purposeful. One, we have so many things going on in our society. And so when that happens, our tendency is to settle in at home, get a nice blanket and a cup of hot chocolate, and gather up by the fireplace and just veg out, right? Because you're overwhelmed, there's so much going on, and you just look forward to that downtime where you're doing nothing. But home can be both a physical place that we go, that we enter in, we open the door, and we feel like we've made it home. But it can also be an experience that we have when we settle in and make connections with those who are around us. So it's really about the connections. It's not so much about the things we have or the activities that we do, but it's about the connections that we make every day. So, the second thing of our topic today is we're going to talk about honoring family traditions and creating new ones. So, maybe you have traditions that you have done as a family, but maybe you're starting your family anew with some new traditions. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then that'll be the first part of our episode. And then the next episode, we're going to talk about what it means to navigate the challenges of the seasons. And as we're navigating those challenges, which could be distance, like me, my family is out of town and I'm here. It could be the grief or the stress that it causes during the seasons, and then we'll talk about how to make it more meaningful and more inclusive. So that's what's ahead, the next two episodes. So let's just go ahead and pop in. So when I think about the emotional significance of home, I think about what home represents. It's more than just a physical place. So we can be at home in our houses, we close our door and we've arrived home. But home can also be a sense of well being that we create in spaces that are different. So think about the college student who goes away to college and they make their dorm room homey and cozy because they are going to be there. And even though their family is not there, they may have pictures of them hanging or they may do certain things that we always do when we're home. But when they come home from college during the holidays or during their break, they're like, oh, it's so good to be home, because home is just about the space that we're in, but it's also about the people we share it with, what it evokes for us, and what it brings in. I can remember being married for the first time and going home to my family, usually during the holidays. And my entire body would just relax and settle in. And there was nothing that I didn't experience that didn't evoke all of these memories. And one memory in particular, I remember my dad and I in the kitchen talking about lemon curd and the proper way to make it. So, if you've never made lemon curd, it's quite the feat. But there's people who make it with water, which is not my daddy and I's camp. And then there's people who make it with milk, and it's much richer, much creamier. And so I can remember us talking about this, and once it gets made, and what do you eat with it, and having crumpets and English muffins, or putting it on toast, and all these different things. And so when I think about that memory, it automatically transports me right back to the kitchen, right back to the countertop, what things look like. And that's the feeling of home. But where it can also come is when we have the experience again, like I did in Seattle, Washington at the crumpet shop, where I was sitting at the counter looking out, called my dad and told him, guess where I'm at? And so that crumpet shop was these crispy handmade crumpets with lemon curd and butter, of course, in these little nooks and crannies. And just the mere thought of that took me back, transported me back to being home with my dad. That's what it means to be home. That's what it means to be home for the holidays. So, as those holidays can evoke both nostalgia, they can also highlight the family dynamics in our family. So, what does home mean to you during the holidays? I love that question because for everybody, it means something different. For some, it means it's chaotic and loud and noisy, and we're all going to descend on the house and sleep in all our little spots and whatnot. For others, there's nostalgia of memory of things that once were that no longer are. And we try and recreate what we had before. And there's not quite a way to totally recreate it. So something changes, which is why we create new traditions and new holidays as a way to get through the holiday time. So I'm thoughtful of this quote that I read, It says, home is not a place, it's a feeling. And that was Cecilia Ahearn. So, home is not a place, it's a feeling. So, if I believe that quote, it means that I can create a sense of home no matter where I go. So, in our house, if you come to our house in December, most definitely there will be a hot chocolate bar. That hot chocolate bar will have all kinds of toppings. It will have stir sticks that are dipped in chocolate and marshmallows that you can add to the other things that you put in there. And there'll be cozy mugs that we pull out every year that you can do it, or you can get a to-go cup, depending on if you're popping in for a visit or not. But that's a part of our home during the holidays. The other thing that's a part of our home is all the decorations. So I love decorating and creating my own decorations. So I like to think that I can put a little bit of holiday in every corner of the house. So you'll see little pop ups of different colors and themes. Usually, when you approach the door, you'll get a peek of what's inside. So, whatever my theme is, and we'll continue that theme throughout. But most important are all of the blankets, all of the cozy spots and blankets by the fireplace that we're going to cuddle up under. We're going to watch Christmas movies. We're going to binge watch whatever shows we want to watch all throughout the weekend. And that's how we continue to honor those traditions as we move forward. So, what's most important about these holidays and these experiences are not the things, but it's the people. It's the people that we connect with, it's the people that we hold meaning to. And as I share, traditions come with all different types of things. So I can remember being the boys being little and me wanting to share a little bit of the traditions I grew up with. One of those traditions was opening up a couple of presents on Christmas Eve. So I know some are like, no, you can't open any presents. You got to wait till Christmas. Well, we didn't. But the two presents that we usually opened up were a game that we could play that night, and then also a pair of pajamas that was definitely in your Christmas box. And so were able to open up those things. And then when the boys got a little older, I always had a stocking and I would stuff the stocking with little whatnots. And so sometimes if we were at home in our own house, I would have them open up their stocking and they would just pull out for days like the things that were in there. And they love that tradition. But because I'm the oldest and I lived away, oftentimes our holidays were spent traveling. So by plane or by car, headed to California to spend time with the rest of the family. So I made it a point to keep those little traditions that we shared at home a part of that celebration. So if we were traveling, I would bring, of course, pajamas and they would unwrap that present, but also we would have the stockings and then we would do those particular things. And of course, always lots of food, lots of snacks. My thing to make during the holidays also are sugar cookies. And so we would do sugar cookies and roll out the dough, cut them, and then bake those. And so when I would travel home, we continued that tradition. And I, of course, made a bigger plate of cookies because there were a lot more of us. So the importance of those holiday traditions connects the generations. So, can you remember a generation holiday thing that you did that connected you back to your previous generation? Maybe it's a train set that gets put up and goes around the tree. And maybe it was your grandpa or uncle or a family member who bought that Pacific train to mimic their childhood. So think about all of those things that connect the generations, but also think about the traditions that are not a tangible thing, but maybe it's a decoration that gets pulled out. I still have decorations my kids made when they were in school, and I'll decorate their individual tree with their Pacific decorations. So every time the paper is all crumpled, it looks old and tattered, but it's a reminder that these were the decorations, the handprint of snowflakes or whatever they made that were a reminder of where they were at that time. But there's also the reminder of storytelling and how we tell the stories about what we celebrate and how we celebrate and what's important to us. And so we can put a modern twist on anything that we do, but we want to make sure that it's relevant to the family members we're sharing it with and that everyone remains connected throughout. So, a few simple ideas are, for instance, setting out a box at the table of something we're grateful for. So, every year, as a family, at the end of the year, we do a jar to talk about what we're grateful for. We put these pieces of paper in it. And then we pull out those papers at the end of the year and we remind ourselves of what we said the year before. And then we create new ones by putting in new pieces of paper to say what we're looking forward to for the coming year. It's a great way that incorporates everybody in the family, and it also stamps that moment to remind ourselves that we actually had an amazing year. Like great things happen because every year doesn't hold just great things. We have losses, we have things that we're remiss about. And so if we can recreate those moments, it will bring in so much more joy as we go forward. So, incorporating some of those different cultures, some of those different things is one way that we can navigate telling our story through our own lens and through our own eyes. So, I want to leave with you an action step as you move forward. So, I would love for you to get a piece of paper and write down just at the top December memories and just begin to jot down some of the things you remember during the month of December that brought you joy or things that you like. So, a few of the things that are on my list are lighting my candles for Advent. So, we celebrate Advent December 1st up until December 25th. And each day, we pull out the Advent box for that specific day and we read a scripture passage for the day from the book of Luke. And as we're reading it, we're talking about what does it mean to us. But when the boys were younger, I wanted them to understand that Christmas was not just about getting gifts, but it was also about receiving and giving gifts to other people. And so for Advent, we had each of the boys to wrap 25 presents, little small presents, so like stocks or chapstick. And we had a basket of all of those presents with the numbers on it, 1 through 24. So each day as they were leaving the house, they pulled one present and decided who they were going to give that present to each at school. And what it taught them was one, to be in the place where you're giving, not just looking to receive, but you're also giving just as Jesus gave to us, we're able to give to others. And so that was the messaging that they went out of the house. What was amazing is that most people didn't know what Advent was. And so they got to explain what it was in their own way, explaining it. And two, the people were just really like taken back at how thoughtful the boys were to bring them a present. Like it wasn't even Christmas yet. And they're bringing me a present. And I would to share with the boys to tell their friends, you can open it now. You don't have to wait. But still, some would still gather all their presents and not until the 25th open their presents. So it was up to them to decide how they did that. So that was one tradition. This year, I'm going to do a new tradition, which are creating crackers. And crackers, if you don't know, in England, they are these like firecracker almost things, like presents wrapped, and they're just a tube, and you fill them in the same way like we did the Advent gifts. You fill them with items, and then everyone gets one. And so we're going to do that as one of our new traditions. And as we're doing it, we're going to record what that looks like. So take lots of pictures, capture your moments, and remember the traditions can be very simple or elaborate, but most of all, they need to connect you to one another. So that's our episode for today. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to tune back in for our next episode that's going to talk about navigating holiday challenges as we move through the holidays, and then also how to make it more meaningful and inclusive. So have a great day. This episode of In the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.